Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Pradjana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Pradjana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhagavad Paramahansa, Rudikacharya Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Rudikacharya Ashtotar, the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. Prabhu, just don't put the book on the sheet like that. Yeah. All right. You don't need a book? You got a book. Okay. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 19th day of November 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 7 entitled Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 19 at the bottom of page 327. You got it? Oh. You're the first. Okay. Very important verse. Bahunam janmanamante Gyanavan man prapadyate Vasudevak sarvamiti Samahatma sudurlabha Bahunam janmanamante Gyanavan man prapadyate Vasudevak sarvamiti Samahatma sudurlabha Bahunam janmanamante Gyanavan man prapadyate Vasudevak Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Go ahead, Vijay. Bahonam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevak Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Bobby, want to try it? Bahonam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevak Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. No? Bahonam Janmanamante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudevak Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Okay. No, that's it. All right, I'll read them, just read along silently. I'll read these through. Bahonam, many. Janmanam, repeated births and deaths. Ante, after. Jnanavan, one who is in full knowledge. Mam, unto me. Prapadyate, surrenders. Vasudevaha, the personality of Godhead, Krishna. Sarvam, everything. Iti, thus. Saha, that. Maha-atma, great soul. Sudurlabha, very rare to see. Krishna says to Arjuna, after many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Purport. The living entity, while executing devotional service or transcendental rituals after many, many births, may actually become situated in transcendental pure knowledge that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of spiritual realization. In the beginning of spiritual realization, while one is trying to give up one's attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. But when one is further advanced, he can understand that there are activities in the spiritual life, and that these activities constitute devotional service. Realizing this, he becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and surrenders to Him. At such a time, one can understand that Lord Sri Krishna's mercy is everything, that He is the cause of all causes, and that this material manifestation is not independent from Him. He realizes the material world to be a perverted reflection of spiritual variegatedness, and realizes that in everything there is a relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Thus he thinks of everything in relation to Vasudeva, or Sri Krishna. Such a universal vision of Vasudeva precipitates one's full surrender to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the highest goal. Such surrendered great souls are very rare. This verse is very nicely explained in the 3rd chapter, verses 14 and 15, of the Shvetashvatar Upanishad. Sahasrashirsha Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhumim Vishvato Vritva Tyatishtad Dashangulam Purusha Evedam Sarvam Yad Bhutam Yadcha Bhavyam Uttam Tatvasyeshano Yadanne Nati Rohati. Lord Vishnu has thousands of heads, thousands of eyes, and thousands of feet. Entirely encompassing the whole universe, He still extends beyond it by 10 fingers' breadth. He is, in fact, this entire universe. He is all that it was and all that will be. He is the Lord of immortality and of all that is nourished by food. In the Chandogya Upanishad 5.1.15, it is said, Na vaivacho nashangshu chakshunsi Nashrotrani chamanangsi ya chakshate prana iti eva chakshate prano ye vaitatani sarvani bhavanti. In the body of a living being, neither the power to speak, nor the power to see, nor the power to hear, nor the power to think is the prime factor. It is the life air which is the center of all activities. Similarly, Lord Vasudeva, or the personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is the prime entity in everything. And because Vasudeva is all-pervading and everything is Vasudeva, the devotee surrenders in full knowledge. See Bhagavad Gita 7:17 and 11:40. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this verse is often quoted by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas, and it emphasizes the point that we're on a path here, that there's a progression. For those who are pious, as Krishna mentions in text number 16, when they're in trouble, when they want money, when they're looking for knowledge or simply curious of absolute truth, they'll approach God, they'll approach Krishna somehow or other. There are four kinds of, best of the Bharata, four kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service to me: the distressed, desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the absolute truth. So, this is in contrast to the impious, in the previous verse. Krishna is very, he doesn't mince words. Namam dushkata no mudha papanyate nadarama maya pirita jnana asuram bhavamashata. It says four kinds of dushkratis as opposed to the sukratis. Sukratis are those who have some pious background in this life, previous life. And so when they're in need of something, they'll oftentimes, when they can't meet their needs elsewhere, they'll go to God or go to church, temple, mosque somehow and pray for that. That's the meaning of this basic verse of four kinds of people who surrender to me. But those who don't have any pious credit, who are steeped in materialism, they'll seek out some material solution to the problems, and completely ignoring or poo-pooing the idea of a supreme personality or some transcendental source like that. So that was mentioned in the previous verse. Those who are the lowest of mankind, who are fools, who are Naradama and Mahayapridita Jnana, who may be externally very intelligent, but their real knowledge has been stolen by illusion. And so they may be great professors or maybe scientists, technologists, whatever, psychologists. But they're looking in the material energy for problems which actually have their root in the soul's bondage to matter, which can only be solved by a spiritual solution. So these two divisions are there. And among these four who Krishna says are pious and who approach me, those who really have some idea of spiritual truth and are seeking real knowledge, they're the best, rather than just seeking some material amelioration. Because you may have, you may get your problem solved. You're looking for some money, or you're looking to pay off your rent or whatever, or you're just in trouble, and then you get relieved of that, and your faith in God, well, thank you very much, you know. I don't really need to go to church anymore. My problem is solved, you know. Or you go and you confess your sins, and then you go back and sinning, and then you go again confess, you know, and get that absolution. So it's highly possible that you can stay on that platform for a long time. But Krishna says of those who are really knowledgeable, know what they're looking for, and are serious students, they're the best. He praises those in the previous two verses. It says, of these four, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best, for I am very dear to him and he's dear to me. So in other words, those who are serious students and are trying to progress in bhakti, Krishna really gives them all the mercy. And he says they're the most glorious, the undoubtedly magnanimous, but one who is situated in knowledge me I consider to be just like my own self. And then in this verse, he says how rare it is. How rare it is to come to this platform of really understanding that God is everywhere. Now this chapter, when you study this chapter, you see what Krishna is doing here. In the previous chapter, it was all about yoga, right? He's describing Ashtanga yoga, meditative yoga. And he even gives some practical instructions. The first one is, go. Leave the city. Go out to a secluded place, a holy place. Be alone and work on the pranayama. He mentions the pranayama. And the concentration of the mind. and sit in a certain way and fix the eyes between the two eyebrows. Now the tip of the nose, is nas agra, the beginning of the nose. That's up here. I don't think it's down here. Have you tried it? If you try down here, you go cross-eyed. But if you're here, anyway, I'm pretty sure it's between the two eyebrows. So he gives those instructions. And after the whole thing, which sounds pretty impossible for us, Arjuna, he says, I don't think I can do it. You remember what he says? That the mind is very flickering. And it's very obstinate, very powerful. I think to control it, you know the analogy he used, you remember? It's like controlling what?
Wind.
The wind. You remember living in Miami? When that hurricane came, we'd always be checking those weather maps every day.
Today a little windy too.
Yeah, a little bit. Just, but when you get the hurricane wind, no question of controlling it, it's just trying to get out of the way. So Arjuna compares it like that, and Krishna encourages himself. It's difficult, but it's possible with practice. So Arjuna says, okay, but what if I fail? That's okay. You don't lose anything. You'll be born in a yogi family. You're born in a pious family. Shuchinam Shrimatamgi. But after the whole thing is said and done, Arjuna is not going to be able to do this. He's a Kshatriya. He's active. He's involved in fighting. It's the last kind of personality or body type you would imagine would sit down in meditation. But then the last verse gives Arjuna great encouragement. Yoginam abhisarvesham madgate anantaratmana. Of all these yogis, the best one, who's always thinking of me within his heart with great faith and worshipping me, that's Arjuna. Arjuna is Krishna's best friend. He's always thinking of Krishna. But in this, so now this 7th chapter, now we should always remember, Prabhupada explained that the middle 6 chapters are the essence of the Gita. And it culminates in the 12th chapter, which is called Bhakti Yoga, right? But here, in the 7th chapter, Krishna, he begins with these words, Maya saktamanapata yogam yunjanmarashaya. He says, now I'm going to explain to you how you can have your mind, or train the mind to be naturally attracted to me. The whole idea in the Ashtanga Yoga is to kind of wrestle with the mind. You remember he said the mind is the best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy. The uncontrolled mind is your worst enemy. Now that's true in any yoga. But the method of trying to control the mind in Ashtanga Yoga is practically impossible for us, for modern, Kali Yugites, who are always disturbed, who are misguided, unlucky, don't live very long. This yoga practice can go on for hundreds of years. You remember Prabhupada would, sometimes he lived in Allahabad for 13 years and he saw, I think, 2 or 3 of those major melas, Kumbh Melas. Literally millions of people gather. And in order to bathe in the confluence of 3 rivers, one of which is invisible, the Ganges and the Yamuna meet there in Allahabad or Prayag, and the Saraswati, which is unmanifest. So it's called Triveni, the meeting of 3 rivers. If you bathe there at a certain time of the year, and it's always in January, freezing cold, it's northern India, in a certain year, it's all based on astronomy and astrology, then you get liberation. So millions of people gather. And some of the people who gather there, they're coming from the Himalayas. These are genuine yogis, the few out of many billions who can really practice this and make advancement. And Prabhupada explained, first of all, be careful, don't look at them in the eye, because they have certain powers. They're very proud, and they can take offense very easily, and they can zap you with some curse or something. So you'd be very deferential. But they're walking naked, and they're maybe hundreds of years old. They look like they're 30 years old. Yeah. They're slowing down the respiration. They're doing everything. There's powers to do that. But I remember reading this story in National Geographic, of all magazines. They did a special on the Kumbh Mela. I remember the cover very vividly. There was this young lady, and she had all these tattoos of Ram's name in Devanagari all over her face. This was to catch people's attention. So, what happened was there's different groups of these Babas who come down, and from the Himalayas, because the various caves and So they all wanted to bathe at the confluence at the exact moment of most auspicious time. So there's they had a big rumble amongst the different groups, and the soldiers had to break them up, So this is not bhakti, The devotees would go there. They went there. How else do we know about this? So Prabhupada said, yes, we're going to go, but we're going to do Harinam, and we're going to pass out prasadam and books, little pamphlets in all different languages. They would use. But the devotees weren't looking for liberation because they felt already liberated. Bhakti is so powerful that liberation comes in the train. Liberation is so valuable. Just imagine, we've been cycling through the cycle of birth, old age, disease, and death for millions of births now. But most people don't know that. Who knows it? You forget by Krishna's grace. No, so nobody really, if you don't know you're the soul, you think this is my one life, this is it. I was born, I came into being when I was born, and I'll die, and that's the end of it. That's total materialism. But the first lesson of spiritual life in general, Bhagavad Gita in specifically, is you're not the body, you lived before and you live again. Dehinos menyata dehe kaumaram yovanam jadatata dehantara praptir dhiras tattanamuyati. Is that the living entity, just as in this life, if you just think back on your life, we've passed through so many ages, so many bodies. We say our body has grown, but it really has changed from little baby body to adolescence and on, middle age. Now we're getting old. We have all these different bodies, but I'm the same person. So what is that? That's the soul. Similarly, the soul will get another body at death, and has gotten another body after the last death. This is the basic understanding of spiritual life, and Krishna teaches it first on his teachings. Now, if you think about it, it changes everything. It should change everything in your calculus of what is good and what you should strive for. Because otherwise, it's just going to be in terms of this one body. All right? How can I make this body most comfortable and prosperous and please it as much as possible? And then it's over. That's atheism. That's total materialism. But it's not the truth. That's why we can never be satisfied with material things, because they're always changing. We don't change. We're looking for a permanent place of ever-increasing happiness. We can't find it in this world. But this is all we know because we've separated ourselves from the spiritual world. So Krishna consciousness means to come to this point after many, many births of cultivating knowledge to finally realize Vasudeva is everything. Now, how is Vasudeva everything? He's explained the early part of this chapter. Bhumarapo Analavayo. He's divided this energy that we experience all the time. Solid matter, right? No mystery there. Gases, right? Air. We don't think about it until we can't breathe anymore, then we think a lot about it. if somehow your breathing is restricted. And liquids, and fire, electricity, these are different kind of energies. Where are they coming from? How are they working so beautifully? This is on the basis of, Krishna says, these are my energies. They're moving because the divine is behind them, not because of nature. Nature is moved by the Supreme. That's the lesson here. So, but these are all energies of Krishna, right? And then you get to finer and finer. The space where everything is located is also an energy, ether. And then subtle energies we have. Does everyone have a mind here? We know they do, but you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't weigh it. But it's very important, right? And then your intelligence, your discriminating factor. What is right? What is wrong? Only human beings can ask this question: should I do it or should I not? Does a dog or a cat ever ask, should I do it or should I not? They don't have the intelligence. It's just whatever the instinct is telling them. The super soul, do this, do that, right? But because we have that higher intelligence, we have higher responsibility. And therefore we can lose the human form of life, which is a great tragedy. So lose it or use it properly. So understanding, now all these are Krishna's energies, even the subtle one, the mind, intelligence, the ego. These 8 comprise my lower energies, apara prakriti. They're inanimate, they're matter, just as this little podium here is made out of, we say, earth, right? Now, it has a function and it has a form because the Spirit has touched it and made it into something that can be used to hold a book and everything. Otherwise, it's just wood. So, Krishna is explaining, besides these lower energies, there is the higher energy, the para prakriti. That's us, spirit, consciousness, you see. And everything in the world is simply a combination of these two. Even those things that don't appear to be in a body, like this building or a stone, there's a higher being, a demigod behind it. There's Bhumi for the earth, there's Surya for the fire and the sun, and there's Vayu for the air. Everything is, behind all of this matter is a conscious being that is organizing it. And above all of them is Krishna. And therefore he says here, Vasudeva Sarvamiti, one who understands, knowing this, Jnanavan Mampapadide Vasudeva, they understand that Vasudeva, Krishna, is everything, directly, or by his expansion, or by his energies. So living in that understanding is a high level of Krishna consciousness. That you're always in Krishna's presence, through his energies or directly, through his name and through his form and through this service. So, such a person is a Mahatma. And that's what we want to be, a great soul who lives in the divine, is never separated. Our problem is we've forgotten, willfully forgotten, our connection to Krishna. And therefore we're suffering. Because nothing is on the eternal platform. Even though we may be a little happy sometimes, we know that if we're intelligent, we know it's going to pass, you know, and that we can never really be secure in this world because time is pushing us to destruction. So unless we come to the spiritual platform and see Krishna's hand in everything and re-establish our relationship with Krishna by bhakti yoga, we're going to be always in anxiety. So we want to go to that Vaikuntha platform, Vaikuntha world, which means beyond anxiety, the world of no anxiety. So that's a rare platform to come to, but that's what this chapter is about. Now, after he teaches us about the different categories of energy, then he says, here's how you can experience me. You don't have to go to the Himalayas. Rasoham apsukein ongteya. The taste of water. We drink water right here in SanDiego. If you can just remember this one verse, because I am that taste of water. I am the light of the sun and the moon, because it's my energy, you see? So you can see me in my creation, in your experience of the creation. This is like the first step in God realization. You see how your whole vision can become divine. You can see the Lord working everywhere. You just moved that book over. But how did you do it? You did it by moving your body, which is part of Krishna's energy, using your energy. This is how we can live. But if we want to exploit Krishna's energy for our own pleasure, then the covering of Maya comes over, we forget all about it. Even though we just read that Krishna is the taste of water, if we're not mindfully, this mindfulness, remembering that, and remembering this water, and how can I use this water for Krishna, it's offered water, then we're going to again fall into the spell of Maya. So this is the first step, and Krishna is going to continue his instructions here. And so much important information is going to be given about how we can practice Krishna consciousness even in this lifetime and become free of the bonds of birth and death. And we'll go on from the 7th, 8th, 9th chapter. The 9th chapter is a very key chapter called the most confidential knowledge. So we're embarking on this wonderful journey through the essential part of the Bhagavad Gita, the middle 6 chapters. Okay, any questions or comments on this important verse? Many, many verses we have passed. Yes, Lauren?
So are we separate from Krishna, not separate from Krishna, or both?
Both. Okay. You know the answer. That's it. Lord Chaitanya's essential instruction. Achincha Beda Beda Tattva. Inconceivably, simultaneously separate from and one with. Beda means Achincha. Achincha Beda means separate, and Abeda means not separate. Now, for most of the time, as bhaktas, unlike the impersonalists, they want to emphasize merging. We're one. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and we want to merge into the Supreme Brahman, I'll become one. And no more pain, no more birth and death today. But that's not our natural position, so we come back down again. So, the bhaktas, the devotees, always want to emphasize the difference, because without recognizing that difference, there's no meaning to bhakti. There have to be 3 things. There's Bhagavad, the worshipable Lord, all attractive, Krishna, loving. And there's the bhakta, there's the Bhagavan, the bhakta, and the bhakti between the two. If we merge, it's worse than hell. Kaival yam narakayate. There's a verse like that. Because, we want to maintain that difference. But it's important to remember the oneness also, because of this. And that is this, that Krishna is known, said to be in the Vedanta Sutra, Anandamayo Bhyasat. By his activities, by his, we can see that he's always full of ananda. Even when he's killing the demons, it's just a recreation, you know. And so there's all varieties, unlimited varieties of wonderful ananda. Now, we are part and parcel of Krishna. Mama evangsha jiva loke. They're all my anksha, you see. So we have Krishna's qualities in minute degree. So just as he's anandamayo, means he's made of bliss or full of bliss, that's our natural position. But we're not like that now, right? In this material, bodily, conditioned state, we're restricted. We're trying to get that. Our attempts to enjoy sense gratification are perverted or pathetic attempts to reach that state of bliss of ananda. But it's always defeated because our ability to enjoy is very limited. So it's a tragic situation. So since we are also anandamaya in our natural state, how can we regain it? By acting as Krishna's parts and parcels. Meaning, taking pleasure in Krishna's pleasure. That's really what bhakti means. That's what real love is. Think about the closest thing we have, as Prabhupada said many times, to true selfless love in this world, a mother's love for a child. Overflowing love. So much concern. Is the child happy? Is he healthy? You know? If the child smiles, little baby smiles, the day is made for the mother. Even though she may have gone through so much trouble just to protect it. Completely selfless. She's not thinking, what am I getting out of this? You know? What she's getting is simply that that child is happy. That's true selfless love. But in the material world, there's always, you know, the kid grows up and they leave home, or, you know, in other words, it can't be sustained. But in relation to Krishna, that's the ideal. And the ideal, the greatest ideal of that love, the gopis. The gopis, they gave up their good name, they gave up their family, everything, run out to the forest, you know, to serve Krishna. Because he wanted them to come. He called them with the flute, right? Or Mother Yashoda, we just had Damodar month, you know. Always worrying, is Krishna, what's going to happen in the forest? You know, she doesn't know he's God, she's completely covered, she's just a loving son. He's walking around barefoot, he may get, you know, he get a thorn there, and all these demons are coming, oh my God. So she's completely worried, right? But she's totally meditating on Krishna. She's absorbed. And then when he comes back from the forest, it's like the greatest festival. She hears that flute playing in the distance, sees the big dust storm, the dust cloud from the cows. And there's Krishna. As soon as she sees him coming, she's so full of love that the milk is pouring from her breast. In other words, Krishna, 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 Krishna. She's meditating on him. Is he happy? Is he healthy? Oh, you know, that's a way. So this selfless love is what really makes us happy. The best way to experience, you know, the bliss of Krishna consciousness is to completely forget about the bliss of Krishna consciousness and just try to make Krishna happy. Take pleasure in his pleasure, and take pleasure in just remembering him in the greatest detail and glorifying him. That's because we're part and parcel of Krishna. So we're one with him in that respect. And when we direct our energies toward pleasing him, we become truly pleased. And of course, he's so pleased when we please his devotees. So therefore, serving his devotees, helping them. It's just, this is really what the spiritual world is all about. And so the difference is, there's a difference, so we can experience Krishna outside and the relationship, but there's a oneness in that he takes great pleasure in pleasing us and we take great pleasure in pleasing him. That's the mood of Vaikuntha. Okay, so we have time for one more at least. So now in text 20, Krishna, he turns, okay, by contrast, here's what happens when your intelligence is stolen away, your real knowledge is stolen away by material desire. Kamaistaistaiva jnana. All right, let's try again. Text 20. You gave the book away. You know this verse. Kamaistaistaiva jnana. Page 329. Kamaistaistaiva jnana. Papadyante nyadevataha. Tang tang niyamamastaya prakritya niyataksvaya. Those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Purport. Those who are freed from all material contaminations surrender unto the Supreme Lord and engage in His devotional service. As long as the material contamination is not completely washed off, they are by nature non-devotees. But even those who have material desires and who resort to the Supreme Lord are not so much attracted by the external nature. Because of approaching the right goal, they soon become free from all material lust. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether one is a pure devotee and is free from all material desires, or is full of material desires, or desires liberation from material contamination, he should in all cases surrender to Vasudeva and worship him. This is the translation of the verse that's now being quoted. As stated in Bhagavatam 2.3.10, Akama sarvakamo va mokshakama udaradi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Less intelligent people who have lost their spiritual sense take shelter of demigods for immediate fulfillment of material desires. Generally, such people do not go to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they are in the lower modes of nature, ignorance and passion, and therefore worship various demigods. Following the rules and regulations of worship, they are satisfied. The worshippers of demigods are motivated by small desires and do not know how to reach the supreme goal. But a devotee of the Supreme Lord is not misguided. Because in Vedic literature there are recommendations for worshipping different gods for different purposes, for example, a diseased man is recommended to worship the sun. Those who are not devotees of the Lord think that for certain purposes demigods are better than the Supreme Lord. But a pure devotee knows that the Supreme Lord Krishna is the master of all. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 5.142 it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna ar sababhritya. Only the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is master, and all others are servants. Therefore, a pure devotee never goes to demigods for satisfaction of his material needs. He depends on the Supreme Lord, and the pure devotee is satisfied with whatever he gives. So Krishna is speaking in the next few verses, in this verse, about how it's inadvisable to worship the demigods for material things, which is very common in the Vedic culture. There's a whole section of the Vedas called the Karma Kanda section, in which there are various sacrifices recommended for various purposes and so forth. But as Prabhupada quotes here from the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam, you have to remember, is the crown jewel of all the Vedic writings, and it reconciles all of it, everything. So here, in this recommendation, right near the beginning of Bhagavatam, in the second canto, Akama Savakama Vamokshakama Dhanadi. Now this verse, it follows numerous verses describing which god you can, or goddess you can worship for different purposes. If you want a beautiful wife, or or one great beauty, worship Uma. If you want strong senses, worship Indra. If you want health, worship Surya. It goes on, like 20 of them, And then at the end it says here, but here's the real recommendation. If you're full of all kinds of desires, or you have no material desires, or you want liberation, one who is a dharadi, who's truly intelligent, will intensely practice bhakti yoga and worship whom? The Supreme Person, Purusham Param. So the idea is that in our culture, in the West, if you're full of all material desires, chances are you're not going to worship any demigod. You'll just worship mammon, because we're surrounded by all this technology and science, that seemingly can fulfill all desires. But is everyone happy? No. They get cheated. Like this worship of the phone. I mean, what you place your attention on, and what you look for to, get reciprocation from, that's where your heart is, that's where your faith is, that's where your worship is. Everybody's worshiping the phone. You walk down the street, or you go to a subway car, I go traveling, and everybody, not just the young people, everybody. Why? Because it's such a magic box, whatever you want, wherever you want to talk, whoever you want to talk to, you get so many things. your own petty little life seems insignificant to what's going on in the phone. It's a whole world, is it? It's a trick of Maya. But what's really happening is people becoming alienated. There's a whole lot, they've been measured, I read this article about young people. I mean, it's always hard being an adolescent, growing up, going to high school, all this stuff, But it's become much harder because, what are they saying about me now? Am I measuring up? What is that, FOMO? Fear of missing out, right? Fear of missing out. It used to be fear of missing out, or you go out somewhere and you can go to where people are hanging out. Now you got to get on that phone and find out, what's really going on, So that's what that's what they're worshiping. But it's not giving them what they're looking for. And none of the demigods can do that. As Krishna will say a little while in a few verses, whatever you want to worship, I'll make your faith strong. Wherever you're placing your attention and your faith, then I'll make it stronger. You see? And you worship like anything, with great faith, And you may get some reciprocation, or it may just be your karma and you think it's a reciprocation, But whatever it is, antavattu palamtation tadvavaltyalpamedasam, it's temporary. It won't solve the real needs of the soul, which is looking for that eternal abode of real happiness. It's just another feature of Maya. And that's what's going on. So this movement and this book, Krishna's efforts, are to try to disabuse us of that and to really give us a taste of actual happiness, where it lies. Not out there, really, but in here. We have to contact our real selves, understand who we are, and then act on that basis, and we'll find ourselves more and more happy because we'll be in touch with the Supreme. So in this section here, Krishna is going to roundly condemn the worship of demigods for temporary happiness, and in the 9th chapter he does the same thing. There's another section in the 9th chapter. So, and the whole thing culminates in, didn't we just read? Vasudevam sarvamiti, who surrender unto me alone, in the 18th chapter. What's the final instruction altogether? Sarva dharmam parityaja, mam ekam sharanam vraja, aham tvam sarvapape, mokshayasyami mashacha. Surrender unto me alone means without the demigods. That's a major a point of philosophy for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. What's the second offense? To consider the names of the demigods, such as Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of Lord Krishna. This is what Prabhupada is talking about here, is that, okay, I know Krishna, and I'm going to worship Krishna for bliss, but when it comes to my, I've also got a business. I've got to worship Ganesh. And what about this god and this god? I have to cover everything. I've seen Hindu temples, you go in there, there's Krishna and Radha, but there's Ganesh, and there's Shiva sitting there, and a couple others, Kali, of course, you have to, yeah, Hajpaj Bhagavad. That's not bhakti, that's shopping, That's politics. So, bhakti means wholly and solely dedicated to Krishna. To regard. What is one of the elements of surrender? To see Krishna will protect, Krishna will provide, and whatever I need for my devotional service, Krishna will provide. As far as my yoga kshemam bahamyaham, I will provide what they need, and I personally carry what they lack, and the protection is also there. That's part of what it means to be a bhakta. So this section is important also. In contrast to Bahonam Jamanamante, understand Vasudeva is everything, to understand that Krishna is something but not everything, and then to worship others, that's a lack of faith. So our Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas are very strong about that. And Krishna Lila, what do we just have? Govardhan Puja. Krishna himself, he proved, one of the main points was, you don't have to worship anything but me, I'll take care of you. Yeah. So that's important for us to realize. Okay, any discussion on this point? All right. Now, in the past, we've been reading from another book, you remember? A little bit, I think. What we're reading from? Upadeshamrita? Yes, Upadeshamrita. So let's read one of those verses. Upadeshamrita is only 11 verses long. And it takes us from the point of finding the actual guru, who's an actual guru, and surrendering, to the things you should give up, the things you should do, and developing a taste for the holy name, and then finally going to, worshiping Krishna, and finally going to Radha Kund. So we have a long way to get to that point. But let me see if I can find out where we are. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So here he's going to talk about the relationship between devotees. There's actually 3 verses about that. So it begins with this verse. I'll say, you say, Vijay, you know it. Dadati padigunati guyam akyati prichati bhunkte bojayati chayava shadbidham priti lakshanam. So these are the different ways in which devotees can express their love for each other. Offering gifts in charity, accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam, and offering prasadam are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. In this verse, purport, in this verse, Srila Rupa Goswami explains how to perform devotional activities in the association of other devotees. There are 6 kinds of such activities. 1, giving charity to the devotees. 2, accepting from the devotees whatever they may offer in return. 3, opening one's mind to the devotees. 4, inquiring from them about the confidential service of the Lord. 5, honoring prasadam, or food, spiritual food given by devotees. And 6, feeding the devotees with prasadam. An experienced devotee explains, and an inexperienced devotee learns from him. This is guyam akyati prichati. When a devotee distributes prasadam, remnants of food offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in order to maintain our spirit of devotional service, we must accept this prasadam as the Lord's grace received through the pure devotees. We should also invite pure devotees to our home, offer them prasadam, and be prepared to please them in all respects. This is called bhunkte bojayate chaiva. Even in ordinary social activities, these 6 types of dealings between 2 loving friends are absolutely necessary. For instance, when one businessman wishes to contact another businessman, he arranges a feast in a hotel, and over the feast he openly expresses what he wishes to do. He then inquires from his business friend how he should act, and sometimes presents are exchanged. Thus, whenever there is a dealing of priti or love in intimate dealings, these 6 activities are executed. In the previous verse, Srila Rupa Goswami advised that one should renounce worldly association and keep company with the devotees. Sangha tyagat sato vritte. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. This society was started single-handedly, but because people are coming forward and dealing with the give-and-take policy, the society is now expanding all over the world. We are glad that people are donating very liberally to the development of the society's activities, and people are also eagerly accepting whatever humble contribution we are giving them in the shape of books and magazines, dealing strictly with the subject matter of Krishna consciousness. We sometimes hold harekrishna festivals and invite life members and friends to participate in the feasting by accepting prasadam. Although most of our members come from the higher rungs of society, they nonetheless come and take whatever little prasadam we are able to offer them. Sometimes the members and supporters inquire very confidentially about the methods of performing devotional service, and we try to explain this. In this way, our society is successfully spreading all over the world, and the intelligentsia of all countries is gradually appreciating our Krishna-conscious activities. The life of the Krishna-conscious society is nourished by these 6 types of loving exchange among the members. Therefore, people must be given the chance to associate with the devotees of ISKCON, because simply by reciprocating in the 6 ways mentioned above, an ordinary man can fully revive his dormant Krishna consciousness. So this is a very sweet verse and purport here. And indeed, this is a little taste of the spiritual world. When you read Krishna book and you read any of the writings of the Goswamis, you understand that this is how the devotees are interacting with each other. And you know, this idea of holding the kirtan, the festival, and distributing prasadam. I remember there's a beautiful video was made by Yarobar about the following Srila Prabhupada. He has a whole video about the 1970 Ratha Yatra, I think in San Francisco. It was huge. Many devotees came from all over the country. It was the biggest festival in ISKCON at the time. And they show this scene. It literally looked like thousands of hippies, mostly, walking through Golden Gate Park. And, they went down to the bay, and then they rented this big hall there, and they just had kirtan throughout, and they distributed thousands and thousands of plates of prasadam. It was a huge success. Prabhupada spoke, of course he came, So it's a simple thing, just like the Sunday feast. People come and there's kirtan, there's a little talk, more kirtan, prasadam, and people leave, they had a good time. It didn't cost very much at all, and simply the chanting and the feasting. But because the Krishna is there, you can sense it's a spiritual experience. It's a taste of the spiritual world. That's what Prabhupada's giving. So we should try to do that and consciously try to relate to each other by giving our mind, opening our minds confidentially, giving good advice, and exchanging these 6 loving exchanges. It makes for a unique experience. Whereas out there, it's just exploiting. Someone's trying to sell you something, exploit you, And even though they try to dress it up with the idea, how can we serve you, But really, they're not interested in that. They're interested in getting something from you. So ISKCON really is meant for giving. As Prabhupada was famously said, many of my compatriots came to this country to get something, a degree or make some money or something. But we have come simply to give. And because he was always giving, people wanted to give back to him. And that's how the movement is being nourished. Okay, let us prepare for the arti. Nice kirtan, Radha Giridhari waiting for us. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for coming.